What if Scooby-Doo went dark? And I mean really dark. Mystery Incorporated takes the fun we know, adds bigger scares, and gives us one huge mystery that lasts the whole season.
Guys, you see that? He's growling at me, actually growling.
We get spooky Twin Peaks vibes, horror-style moments, and even crazy Babylonian myths in Season 2. Plus, old-school Hanna-Barbera characters like Captain Caveman and Jabberjaw drop in for fun. Velma and Shaggy try dating. It's a total mess, while Scooby steals the show. And hearing Matthew Lillard with Casey Kasem, pure nostalgia. This show's too good to ignore, so let's jump right in. The gang celebrates solving a mystery, but Sheriff Stone arrests them for interfering in police work. He calls their parents, stressing Fred's father, Mayor Jones. After Stone leaves, the gang laments being unappreciated. Velma gives a half-hearted tour of the Crystal Cove Spook Museum, mentioning historic disappearances and famous local ghosts. She bluntly reveals they were all criminals in costumes, angering her parents, who rely on the ghost legends to attract tourists. Elsewhere, each member argues with their parents. Mayor Jones wants Fred to be a role model, Shaggy's parents want him to find new friends, and Daphne's parents disapprove of her interest in Fred. Daphne leaves after hearing the Mystery Machine horn. Meanwhile, sewer workers open toxic barrels, releasing green slime. On the way to school, Velma pressures Shaggy about their secret relationship, but he hesitates over Scooby's reaction. Suddenly, a manhole erupts, and the slime mutant attacks before vanishing. The gang investigates a cave where workers uncovered green slime. Daphne finds a locket with a teen couple's photo, while Shaggy spots a hard hat, leading them to see the three workers cocooned on the ceiling. Sheriff Stone arrives, but Fred secretly takes one cocooned body to Professor Raffalo, who confirms the victim is alive, but in stasis. At Fruitmere's, Velma tries to hold Shaggy's hand, but he panics, fearing Scooby's reaction. Daphne hints to Fred about romance, but he focuses on traps. That night, Raffalo is attacked and cocooned. At K-Ghoul, Fred blames himself. Velma discovers Scooby eating the green slime sample. Shaggy tries it and agrees it tastes like Fruitmere's dessert. With little background on Franklin Fruitmere, the gang suspects him. They send Shaggy and Scooby, disguised as girls, to get jobs at Fruitmere's after Velma and Daphne refuse. The gang, disguised as waitresses, sneak into Fruitmere's to search for clues. Shaggy and Scooby accidentally release the slime mutant from a storage closet, prompting a chase. Daphne discovers a hidden entrance to the Crystal Cove Caves, where the gang finds a fresh tunnel leading to the bank. Fred sets a trap, but it misfires, trapping the gang in a cage. The slime mutant seals them in with green slime, but they eat their way out and rescue Daphne, cocooning the monster with Fruitmere's slime. Sheriff Stone and Mayor Jones arrive, but the real Franklin Fruitmere appears, revealing he called the sheriff. The slime mutant is unmasked as Professor Raffalo, who planned to rob the bank and frame Franklin. Daphne shows him a locket, but he denies knowing it. Later, Mr. E calls, warning the gang they are doomed for removing the locket and hinting that the real mystery of Crystal Cove is just beginning. An absent-minded father takes his family to a town called Gatorsburg, convinced they're in New York. He even calls the road Broadway.
I wonder how far Gator Avenue is from Broadway.
Earning an eye roll from his wife. While stopping for gas, the family's dog jumps out of the car and runs into the bushes. The daughter chases after it, but an anthropomorphic alligator attacks her. The family speeds away, with the dog leaping back into the car just in time. Meanwhile, at Fred's house, the gang complains about having no mysteries to solve. Fred tests a new trap, accidentally catching a delivery man on his porch. The gang then receives a note from Mr. E along with a package containing a bag made of 100% pure gator, supposedly from Gatorsburg, a place where gator skin has been unavailable for years. According to the story, years ago, prospectors came to Gatorsburg looking for gold, but found alligators instead. Gator skin turned out to be even more valuable, and the town thrived, becoming famous for its products. But one day, the gator mines ran dry, and the town became a ghost town. The gang travels to Gatorsburg to investigate. Once there, they split up, Fred with Daphne and Velma with Shaggy. Velma sees this as a chance to spend time with Shaggy, but he avoids romance for fear of upsetting Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby visit Gatorburger, where a gator person narrowly avoids being spotted. Velma, still upset with Shaggy, walks off. When the gang regroups, they find no clues and decide to leave, only to discover the mystery machine's engine is gone. A gruff Gatorsburg mechanic says he'll have to order a new one, which won't arrive until tomorrow. The gang calls their parents for rides, but each refuses for different reasons. Velma's mom is watching a horse race, Fred's dad is relaxing, Daphne's mom won't go out in the dark, and Shaggy's parents are busy painting still lifes. With no choice, they stay overnight. Fred asks the mechanic for a place to stay, and he sends them to his sister's hotel. Greta Gator and her son Gunther aren't happy to see them. Greta gives them 2 rooms and 3 rules. No boys and girls sharing rooms, no leaving rooms, and no pets. This forces Scooby to sleep in the mystery machine. Velma quickly breaks the rules by sneaking out to see Shaggy. At the same time, Shaggy leaves to check on Scooby but runs into Velma. When she asks what he's doing, Shaggy lies and says he was coming to see her. In Gatorsburg, Scooby is chased by 3 gator people into Fred's room, interrupting his trap scrapbook presentation to a bored Daphne. The lights go out, and the gang escapes. In Daphne and Velma's room, Velma nearly kisses Shaggy before being interrupted. During their escape, Velma is pulled through the floor by a gator person, but is saved by Shaggy, leaving behind a glove that proves the monsters are fake. They flee the hotel, pushing the mystery machine, and Fred realizes the gator people just wanted them gone. Sneaking back, they find the creatures loading fake, pure gator goods onto a boat. A trap unmasks them as Grady, Greta, and Gunther, who ran a counterfeit gator product scheme. Sheriff Stone arrests them despite lacking jurisdiction. The gang finds the mystery machine repaired with a note from Mr. E, warning the mystery has just begun. Thunder rumbles as Shaggy and Velma share a smile. Dylan and Brenda prepare volleyball courts on Crystal Cove State Beach for a Trickles Trick Quid tournament. They argue, Dylan wants everything perfect, while Brenda wants to leave early. Suddenly, a giant crab-like creature grabs Brenda and pulls her under the sand as she screams about a man crab. Dylan thinks it's a prank until she doesn't return. The man crab resurfaces, terrifying Dylan, who is taken off screen. The next day, the gang arrives at the tournament and meets Angel Dynamite, who is broadcasting live. They spot the Trickles Trick Quid mascot, Bud Shelton, promoting the drink. Shaggy and Scooby want real food and head to Skipper Shelton's clam cabin, but Velma questions Skipper about his missing nose, prompting a rant about an attacking clam. Shaggy, pressured by Velma about his diet, cancels his order, upsetting Scooby. Fred suggests clam cones to Daphne, but she reminds him of her seafood allergy. Skipper also vents about being forced to relocate his restaurant during beach events. As the tournament begins, Velma tries to sit with Shaggy, but Scooby slides in between them. Daphne sits with Fred, annoyed by his attention toward the female players, until he clarifies he's admiring the volleyball net for trap purposes. Suddenly, a giant crab arm bursts from the sand, popping the ball, and the man crab emerges, destroying the court and chasing players. Spectators flee as it heads toward the stands, targeting the gang and nearby children. Knocked airborne by its attack, they're saved by players using a volleyball net. Angel Dynamite throws sharpened CDs at the creature, but it deflects them and attacks her booth, grabbing a female player and vanishing into a tent. Sponsor Peter Trickle wants the games to continue, supported by Sheriff Stone. The gang investigates and finds Skipper Shelton's sand-filled locker, suspecting him. Daphne suggests a trap. Fred agrees, deciding she'll be bait due to her poor volleyball skills. Fred assigns Shaggy and Scooby lookout duty while he builds a trap. Shaggy's new diet to please Velma makes Scooby suspicious. Fred's plan is simple. Daphne will lure the man crab onto a spring-loaded pot lid buried in sand, which will launch and trap it in a metal pot. Velma finds Daphne in a bikini, hoping to impress Fred, and applying tanning oil because Fred likes shiny things. Velma asks for relationship advice, leading Daphne to momentarily think Velma knows about her crush on Fred. After clearing the misunderstanding, Daphne says boys like being told what to do. While they talk, the man crab sneaks up, knocking Velma into the mystery machine and drenching Daphne in oil. Shaggy, tempted by the clam cabin, triggers Fred's trap and traps himself. Daphne runs to the trap but finds it sprung, then is dragged into the sand by the man crab. Horrified, Fred digs frantically while Velma tries to calm him. That night at K. Ghoul, Fred keeps digging as if still searching for Daphne. Velma tells Angel he hasn't stopped since she vanished. Shaggy blames himself, while Scooby brings him food to cheer him up. Fred briefly asks why no one has made a plan, then returns to digging. A letter from Mr. E arrives with a torn newspaper article about 4 missing kids in Crystal Cove caves, and an 8-track urging them to investigate. At the library, Velma researches the case and finds the caves run under the beach. In the caves, they find a wooden stairwell, and Fred hears Daphne's voice. They discover a cage holding Daphne, Brenda, Dylan, a seagull, and the volleyball player. Scooby frees them, but the man crab attacks. During the chase, Shaggy and Scooby reach the trap door, end up on the volleyball court, and trigger Fred's trap, capturing the monster. After the gang captures the man crab, Sheriff Stone and his deputies arrive. Fred tries to unmask it, expecting Skipper Shelton, but Skipper appears nearby. Velma reveals the culprit is Bud Shelton, the Trickles Trickquid mascot.
The Trickles Trickwood mascot.
She deduced it wasn't a real crab since Daphne had no allergic reaction, and recognized Bud from a newspaper photo. Bud admits he sought revenge on Peter Trickle for stealing his creation, planning to frame Skipper. Daphne asks why he didn't sue, and Bud says lawyers take too long. Later at K. Ghoul, Daphne thanks Fred for caring about her disappearance. Fred nervously downplays it, saying it won't affect their friendship. Daphne hints otherwise. Daphne then sees Mr. E's newspaper clipping, matching it to a locket she found in the caves. The kids in both are 2 of the 4 who disappeared years ago. Velma notes a new mystery, while Angel secretly listens in, worried about their investigation. One night, while babysitting Arthur Bay Wosenthal, Daphne witnesses a strange figure playing a pan flute. Moments later, Arthur is transformed into a monster and chases her out of the house. The figure vanishes in a cloud of smoke. The next morning, Daphne tells the gang, but Fred is distracted by his failing civics grade and upcoming tutoring from Mary Ann Glearden, a child prodigy. They arrive at Arthur's neighborhood to find police barricades. Every child there has been spookified. Mayor Jones forbids them from investigating to protect tourism revenue. At lunch, Velma tries to curb Shaggy's overuse of "like" and insists on buying him new pants. Fred meets Mary Ann for tutoring, while Daphne encounters new exchange teacher Dr. Luis de Portillo, who turns hostile when she notices a book image resembling the flute player. That night, the mysterious figure strikes again, targeting another neighborhood's children. The gang investigates a second neighborhood where more children have been spookified. Shaggy struggles to walk in the tight purple pants Velma bought him, which she claims are stylish. Velma's mom, Angie, arrives giving ghost tours and hands Velma a t-shirt featuring the mysterious pan flute figure to promote. Daphne takes them to Dr. Portillo, who identifies the figure as Que Horrifico, a person who turns into a monster at night and hypnotizes children with a pan flute. Portillo grows suspicious of their questions but explains the legend through a slideshow. Velma suspects him due to his tiredness and possession of the needed items. That night, the gang stakes out his house, chaining him to a chair at his request in case he's the creature. During the watch, pan flute music plays nearby, and frightened parents flee from their spookified children. Que Horrifico appears, laughs, and vanishes in smoke, clearing Portillo of suspicion. The gang sees that spookified kids are slowly taking over Crystal Cove. Expecting Que Horrifico to target new children, they disguise themselves as a family moving into a vacant rental. Shaggy and Scooby, dressed as kids, lure the monster into one of Fred's traps. But Que Horrifico sends a swarm of spookified children to attack. Shaggy and Scooby hide in a closet while the others are cornered in the living room. Fred accidentally turns on the Broccoli Head show, making the kids laugh and lose interest in attacking. They remove their fake fangs, wigs, and masks, saying they'd rather watch TV. Que Horrifico tries to escape but is caught again. The reveal shows Mary Ann Glearden, who explains she wanted to run Crystal Cove as a utopia by removing adults, bribing kids with candy to act spookified. The children return home, and Sheriff Stone arrests Mary Ann while ranting about wasted merchandise money. Later that night at K. Ghoul, Angel Dynamite rewards the gang with pizza. Scooby and Shaggy hear the pan flute and are scared that Que Horrifico is real, but it turns out to be Petrillo, who has come to thank the gang with a concert. As he begins to play, everyone starts dancing. Shaggy pulls Velma aside to tell her that he prefers his original baggy pants to the ones that she bought him, and he wants her to take them back. Velma appears hurt that he doesn't like her gift, but he quickly cheers her up and they dance. A black limousine arrives at Randy's house for prom. His mother insists on taking pictures before he leaves. Inside the limo, Randy gives flowers to his date, who thanks him. She flirts and asks if he's the one, then removes her face to reveal a terrifying ghost girl. Declaring he'll be her boyfriend forever, she terrifies him as the limo drives off. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy watch a Vincent Van Gogh movie and get excited for the upcoming Van Gogh-athon, but Velma isn't impressed. She reminds Shaggy that prom and the marathon fall on their 1-month anniversary, and she plans for them to reveal their relationship at prom and celebrate afterward without Scooby. At school, Daphne hints to Fred about prom, but he's oblivious. He helps new student Alice May, who shows interest in him, angering Daphne. At a prom meeting, the mayor and sheriff warn about a ghost girl kidnapping prom dates in phantom limousines. That night in the school library, Daphne tries to research the 4 missing kids from the Crystal Cove caves. Clues are scattered across the table. Books, maps, and newspapers with pages cut or torn out, making it clear someone has worked hard to block any investigation. Suddenly, the lights go out. Daphne calls out but gets no answer. Using her phone as a flashlight, she searches for a light switch, but it doesn't work. Someone rushes past in the dark, making her drop her phone. She gives chase but is nearly crushed by a falling bookcase. Hearing movement in the girl's locker room, she investigates but finds nothing, until she spots a brief reflection of a ghoulish figure in the mirror. When she spins around, it's only Alice, who claims she's showering there because her house has no water yet. Pretending to leave, Daphne hides and watches Alice exit the locker room and unlock the school basement with a key. The next day at K Ghoul, Daphne tries to convince the gang that Alice is suspicious, but Fred defends her and hints at liking her. Upset, Daphne backs down as Fred leaves. Angel Dynamite then tells the others about a long history of ghost girl attacks. Without Fred, the gang heads to Alice's address, only to discover it's Crystal Cove Cemetery. Splitting up to search, Velma asks Shaggy about prom. He misunderstands, thinking she wouldn't mind skipping it, which angers her until he reassures her he wants to go. Meanwhile, Daphne and Scooby are ambushed and chased by the ghost girl. They regroup with Velma and Shaggy and hide in a building that turns out to be a mausoleum for Deacon Carlswell, the banker who once dressed as the Creeper and is still alive in jail. Inside, they find a backpack, parts of the Creeper costume, and part of a student transfer slip. A knock scares them, but it's just Fred. Daphne insists these clues prove Alice's trouble, but the others want more proof. Daphne is crushed when Fred announces he's going to prom with Alice. On prom night, a heartbroken Daphne is encouraged by Delilah Blake's odd pep talk and decides to stop Fred from going with Alice. Outside his house, Daphne tackles Fred and pleads with him to choose her, but a black limo arrives and Alice leaves in anger when Fred hesitates. Meanwhile, Shaggy secretly prepares for prom with Velma, telling Scooby a fake errand story. Scooby sees their limo, mistakes it for a kidnapping, and chases it, eventually finding the real ghost girl's limo. He warns Fred and Daphne just before the ghost girl attacks at the gym. After escaping to the basement with Alice's key, the gang discovers Alice's clothes and Creeper costume parts in a backpack. Concluding the ghost girl is fake, Fred sets a trap. The gang captures her, revealing Alice, who admits she's Deacon Carlswell's daughter seeking revenge, using the ghost girl legend to frame the gang. As Alice is taken away, Scooby feels hurt that Shaggy ditched him for prom, while Velma is frustrated over her ruined night. Daphne enjoys spending time with Fred, but is still disappointed by his cluelessness about their relationship. On the way to the mystery machine, Daphne notices Alice's forgotten backpack. When she picks it up, an old high school yearbook falls out. The gang gathers as Fred points out a marked page revealing the missing kids: Brad Chills, Judy Reeves, Ricky Owens, Cassidy Williams, and their animal mascot, Professor Pericles. They were once a mystery-solving club called Mystery Incorporated. That night, Alice is bailed out by Ed Machine, Mr. E's associate. She confirms the plan worked and questions why they went through so much trouble for a yearbook. Ed refuses to explain, saying Mr. E believes the gang must investigate the disappearance of the 4 youths. Alice's limo leaves as Ed watches. The Hex Girls, Thorn, Dusk, and Luna, perform to a packed crowd at Crystal Cove's Terrorfium Theater. Daphne wonders how they got front row seats, and Fred explains that Velma, a huge Hex Girls fan, got them. Shaggy tries to film the concert, but Scooby, still mad at him for skipping a Vincent Van Gogh marathon, keeps blocking his view. Suddenly, a futuristic phantom appears in a flash of lightning, demanding the Hex Girls quit. Thorn ignores him, but he damages an amplifier, which falls on her, knocking her out as the audience flees. Backstage, Daniel Prezette suggests canceling the tour, but Thorn and manager Gus Boggs refuse. Fred notes Thorn is the Phantom's target and proposes a double. Velma begs to be chosen, but Fred picks Daphne, who soon realizes she's bait. During the show, the Phantom appears and the trap goes wrong, caging Dusk and Luna. He covers Daphne with his cape and they vanish, leaving Fred panicked. The gang and the Hex Girls meet Sheriff Stone about the Phantom attack, but he's more interested in buying tour merchandise, frustrating Velma. When Stone asks about Fred's odd behavior, Fred grows emotional talking about Daphne. With the sheriff proving useless, Velma decides they'll have to solve the mystery themselves. Meanwhile, Scooby searches the theater for food and bumps into Shaggy over a piece of popcorn. Shaggy offers it, but Scooby refuses. When Shaggy pleads for their friendship, Scooby suggests finding new best friends and leaves. Fred inspects the catwalk, discovering lotion on the hinges. Sabotage. Talking aloud about Daphne, he's unaware she's tied nearby and overhears him. Before he admits he cares for her, the rope breaks and she falls. Found by Prezette and a janitor, Daphne later angrily confronts Fred for what she heard. She leaves with the Hex Girls, and Scooby returns with a ventriloquist dummy named Harry, his new best friend. Daphne visits Velma's house and asks the Hex Girls to turn her into a rock star, leaving Velma ignored. Fred decides to clear the air with Daphne and visits Velma's house, telling her not to risk herself. Daphne, now remade as Crush, has the band kick Fred out but admits she's not okay. Meanwhile, on the Hex Girls tour bus, Shaggy and Scooby argue over watching a Vincent Van Gogh movie, with Scooby using Harry the puppet. The Phantom appears, sets the bus on fire, and they escape before it explodes. Harry's head survives, holding a piece of the Phantom's cape, matching fabric from singer Fancy Pants' costume. Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby confront Boggs, Pants' former manager, but he denies being the Phantom. Scooby's comment about Harry inspires Fred's trap idea. Daphne struggles to rehearse, and Thorn encourages her, sharing how she moved on from her own Fred by writing a song. At the stadium concert, Daphne, performing as Crush, is lowered onto the stage in a heart-shaped chair. She removes her cloak, and the Hex Girls debut a song about Fred, helping him understand her feelings. Afterward, she recloaks and returns to the chair. In the rafters, the Phantom attacks, grabbing the cloak, only to find Harry the puppet inside. Tethered to the stage, Harry halts the Phantom's swing, causing him to fall into a net. Fred explains they acted early to protect Daphne. The Phantom is revealed as Daniel Prezette, once pop star Fancy Pants. Angry at the Hex Girls' success despite his sabotage, he turned to revenge. Sheriff Stone arrests him, and he keeps Harry. After the show, Fred apologizes and admits his feelings, reconciling with Daphne. Shaggy and Scooby also make up. Meanwhile, Velma, sidelined throughout, quietly watches with a mix of loneliness, jealousy, and uncertainty. At the Royal Knights Fair in Crystal Cove, Ben arrives in a pirate costume, despite the event's Renaissance theme. He insists pirates are more fun, but while adjusting his outfit in an alley, he is attacked by a glowing-eyed gnome. Jen arrives to find him paralyzed and blue-skinned as the gnome leaps away. Later, Lord Barry, the fair's host, mocks pirates, while Gil and Amanda Littlefoot argue over keeping the event historically accurate. Scooby and Shaggy roam the fair in pirate outfits, focused on food, while Velma refuses to wear a costume. Fred and Daphne, dressed for the theme, join Velma after she spots an ambulance. Jen explains the attack to Mayor Jones and Sheriff Stone, who dismiss her. The gang decides to investigate. Velma visits her mom's souvenir booth for advice, but Shaggy and Scooby go for ice cream. Soon after, 2 more pirates are attacked and paralyzed by the mysterious gnome. At the Royal Knights Fair, more people in pirate costumes are attacked and paralyzed by the gnome, overwhelming the hospital. Gil worries about business, but Amanda dismisses it. Fred urges his dad, Mayor Jones, to investigate. The mayor agrees only to exploit the gnome's commercial appeal. Daphne finds a pink earring on a victim, which Fred suspects belongs to the culprit. Velma warns Shaggy and Scooby they could be targeted next. The gang heads to the Mermaid Theater, where overflow victims are kept. Sheriff Stone plays a cheesy movie for them and then leaves. While Fred examines a victim, Velma confides to Daphne about her troubled relationship with Shaggy, prompting Daphne to relate to her struggles. Fred returns with a clue, a purple glowing liquid, implying he extracted it from a victim. In the mystery machine, Velma identifies it as jellyfish toxin, causing temporary paralysis. Shaggy notes the victims will recover after the fair ends. The gang returns to the fair to investigate. Shaggy and Scooby overhear Lord Barry arguing with Gil Littlefoot about allowing pirates. Gil reminds Barry he nearly ruined the fair by banning inaccurate costumes. They follow Barry and learn he secretly loves pirates. While spying, the gnome attacks, chasing them into the woods. Scooby runs for help, but Shaggy crashes into a tree and is left unconscious as the gnome approaches. At a picnic table, the gang tries to plan. Scooby cries uncontrollably, clutching Shaggy's fake parrot. Still upset about Velma's past with Shaggy, he tries to take it back, tearing it in half. Velma admits she misses Shaggy. Mr. E calls with the cryptic clue, "Begin your search at the end." Velma realizes they must search where Shaggy vanished. Scooby leads them there, and Daphne falls through a hidden tree door, revealing catwalks the gnome used to move unseen across the fairgrounds. The gang sets a trap for the gnome by digging a pit in the woods and covering it with sod, using Scooby as bait. Fred and Velma wait for Daphne, who returns with steel bracelets. The gnome attacks Scooby, but notices the others and escapes to the catwalks. Fred, Velma, and Daphne give chase, while Scooby rescues Shaggy from being tied high in a tree. The catwalk collapses, sending them both into the pit. The gnome grabs Daphne but fails to paralyze her due to the bracelets, and then flees. It crashes into Lord Barry and falls into the pit, where Fred unmasks it as Gil Littlefoot. Gil admits he framed Amanda to take control of the fair and her fortune, using stilts to fake his height as an alibi. Amanda mocks his short stature, and Sheriff Stone gleefully calls him nicknames like Baby Legs. Mayor Jones complains about another ruined tourist attraction. With the mystery solved, the gang plan to enjoy the final evening of the fair. Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby become excited by bizarre attractions and concessions and run off. Daphne offers encouragement to Velma before chasing Fred, and Velma genuinely relaxes and smiles. Velma is suddenly bumped into by a fair attendee dressed as an executioner who seems to accidentally drop something. Velma tries to tell him that he dropped something but finds he is already gone. Picking up the small box, she discovers that it bears the seal of Mr. E and finds a mysterious note inside that reads,
Don't give up.
"This has all happened before." Clueless as to what could have happened before, Velma pulls one more item from the box, an old photo of the missing mystery incorporated with Professor Pericles circled in red pen. Scooby has a fever, preventing the gang from attending the Mystery Solvers Club state finals, a meeting of other teams of meddling kids. While Fred steps out to grieve, Scooby falls asleep, upset that Velma called him the team's sidekick. In Scooby's dream, he wakes up cured, no sneezing or temperature, and well enough to go to the state finals. He goes downstairs and tells the gang the wonderful news. The gang drives to school where the finals are being held. There, Scooby meets the other mascots, Jabberjaw, the Funky Phantom, Speed Buggy, and Captain Caveman. Just as Principal Quinlan is about to announce tonight's mystery, a fiery skeleton-headed specter named Lord Infernicus shows up and kidnaps everyone except the mascots, Angel Dynamite, and the principal. He gives them until midnight to find their disappeared teammates or they'll never be seen again. The remaining characters form a plan to solve the mystery and find the kids. Speed Buggy, Principal Quinlan, and Angel will go reactivate communication with the outside world, which Infernicus has blocked. and Scooby, Jabberjaw, Captain Caveman, and Funky Phantom will go look for clues. Scooby sniffs out some wood shavings left on the floor, leading to the science lab. Inside, they see that their friends have been turned into guinea pigs. Scooby tried to get guinea pig Shaggy's help by offering him a Scooby snack, which is thrown back in his face. Scooby realizes that this can't be Shaggy and decides to keep searching. Scooby and Funky Phantom have an argument, and Funky Phantom claims he can solve the mystery himself and heads to the library to find a way to change the guinea pigs back. He takes his team of guinea pigs with him. Once he leaves, Infernicus comes back and gloats about his supposed victory over the protagonists. After Infernicus destroys the hallway, Scooby finds a schedule for the docks left on the floor in the rubble and concludes that's where their friends are. Speed Buggy, Angel, and Principal Quinlan arrive after fixing the communications tower, and Scooby shows them the clue. Together, they drive to the docks as the ship pulls out to sea. Jabberjaw and Captain Caveman try to intercept the boat, sinking it and forcing Infernicus back to land. He appears with a semi the teen sleuths trapped in shipping containers. Infernicus tries to run Speed Buggy off the road, but he manages to get in front of the speeding truck. Angel, Scooby, and Quinlan dump the guinea pigs out of their cages, covering the front window and blocking Infernicus's view, causing him to pull over. Jabberjaw and Captain Caveman capture Infernicus and free the kids. Scooby unmasks Infernicus, who is revealed to be Funky Phantom. Funky Phantom was tired of being the mascot and wanted to be the leader of his own team of meddling kids. His plan was to disguise himself as Lord Infernicus, kidnap the kids, replace them with hamsters, so the mascots would be helpless, and send them back to Africa where they would be out of the way. It was a foolproof plan, and it would have worked if Scooby and the other mascots didn't interfere, acting like heroes. Funky Phantom's ghost cat, Boo, gets angry and scratches him for betraying him. Just as the kids start cheering for the mascots, Scooby suddenly faints and the dream ends. Scooby wakes up and finds out his adventure was just a dream all along. Scooby's ashamed that he caused the gang to miss the competition, but the gang isn't mad at him, and Shaggy and the girls reveal that they were able to convince the competition organizers to postpone the competition until after Scooby got better so none of them would miss it, which they apparently haven't told Fred yet. Shaggy and the girls also assure Scooby that he's a valuable member of the team and not a sidekick, which Scooby appreciates. The chairman of the competition comes by to see how Scooby's doing, but Scooby gets freaked out because the chairman looks and acts exactly like the Funky Phantom from his dream. In a roadhouse cafe, the leader of the Spankers motorcycle gang is putting the moves on a woman at the bar when he is told to step away by a green-skinned stranger. Oddnarb and the Wild Brood want the Spankers to leave. A fight ensues. The Spankers leave hurriedly, and Oddnarb tells the bartender that the Brood is heading down the coast to Crystal Cove for a little rest and relaxation. The tiki tub has been rebuilt after it was destroyed by the Humungonauts. Fred has brought Daphne there for their second date since, as his dad owns the place, they get free refills. Daphne isn't pleased that Fred invited Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby along too. The Brood arrives, but Sheriff Stone informs them that no monsters are allowed in public areas unless tickets are being sold. Oddnarb rejects the label and says it is the citizens of Crystal Cove, not the Wild Brood, who are the true monsters. Daphne is attracted to his poetical phrasing, rejects Fred's indifference, and she and Velma leave with the Brood. On the beach, Oddnarb is playing the guitar for Daphne while Velma discusses the problem of having anti-malware software that can't save Shaggy, who she refers to as an idiot, from downloading viruses by clicking on the wrong banner ad with the Brood. When one of the bikes fails to start, Velma adjusts the timing to stop it misfiring, which impresses the orcs. That night at the Crystal Cove Armory, a biker climbs over the gate, disables the security system, breaks in, and steals a rocket launcher. As he leaves, he drops a piece of paper. The next morning, Daphne wakes to find Sheriff Stone and the gang in her bedroom. He knows that it was the monster bikers who were responsible for the break-in, even though Daphne and Velma say they were with them all the time. At the armory, Velma watches the security footage from the garage across the road. An orc in biker gear jumps the gate at the same time as the Brood was on the beach, and boot prints lead to a napkin from Chen's internet cafe and tea house in Chinatown. In Chen's, the gang is questioning the Brood about the break-in when a message from Mr. E appears on all the computer screens. a dancing fish with a sword nose. Velma accesses the IP address she found on the napkin and uses swordfish as a password to access the mainframe, but she is abducted by a shadowy figure. Scooby discovers the shadowy orc standing in a doorway. The gang deduces the clue is Sword Nose and tries to tell Velma but realize that she and Scooby are missing. Scooby is hanging over the cliff on a rope. The shadowy orc tells Velma that unless she helps him reroute a train through Crystal Cove, he'll drop the dog. Despite having an opportunity to remove her rival for Shaggy's affections, Velma hacks the national train database and reroutes the train. The orc pushes Velma off the cliff. Scooby catches her. The tree he's tied to breaks. They fall onto a branch which bounces them back to the cliff top. Arriving back at the police department, Velma and Scooby meet Daphne, Shaggy, and Fred and find that Sheriff Stone has arrested the Brood. They reveal that Swordfish is a secret new video game platform that is being shipped on a train for the unveiling, and that they are the programmers who dress up as orcs to be free of their real life as computer geeks. The mystery machine and the bikers jump onto the moving train and find the shadowy orc is already aboard. The orc climbs onto the roof of the train and uses the rocket launcher to destroy a bridge on the track ahead. Fred and Odnarb fight with the orc. Velma tells Foog to pull the brake level, but it breaks off in his hands. Everybody moves back to the wagon. They decouple the engine and Fred and Odnarb apply the brake. The engine plunges into the ravine, but the wagon stops just in time. The shadowy orc is revealed to be Maxwell, who works in the copy room at the gaming company. He was never allowed to join in the beta testing of the video games, so he made a Wild Brood costume of his own and planned to wreck the Swordfish console. After Sheriff Stone takes Maxwell to jail, Daphne chooses Fred over Odnarb. In Macau, a young woman wearing a panda ring visits a pawn shop and asks to see the jewelry. She admires a dragon ring, but is told it's not for sale. The assistant is distracted by a phone call, and the woman leaves. A man enters and says he has come for his ring, but finds that the box now contains the panda ring. The man conjures white lightning from his fist. Outside, the woman looks at the dragon ring on her finger. At Chen's internet cafe and tea house, Velma introduces Mai Lei, the woman from the pawn shop, who's on a 2-week student exchange from China to Shaggy, Scooby, and Daphne. Mai Lei appears to be attracted to Shaggy. Chen offers them a plate of Szechuan pork ice cream sandwiches and notices her ring. Daphne mentions that there is a delegate from China in Crystal Cove and that Fred and his dad is showing him around town. Velma says Daphne's parents are hosting a dinner for him tonight and invites Mai Lei. Mayor Jones is showing Mr. Wang around the town with Fred when Velma and Mai Lei arrive. Mr. Wang remarks on Mai Lei's ring and asks where she got it. At the dinner, Shaggy asks to change seats with Scooby so that he can sit next to Mai Lei. Barty Blake addresses the assembly when the lights go out and a wizard appears amongst red lightning. The red wizard warns them not to disturb the dragon's heart. Fred activates a trap he installed last year, but the wizard escapes and the Blakes were mad at Fred for the trap he set up in their home without permission. While looking for clues, Scooby sniffs out some scarlet oolong tea, which is very rare and flammable. Outside Chen's coffee, Fred watches through the periscope he installed in the mystery machine at the same time as the ejector seat, which Daphne accidentally activates, much to Velma's shock. As Shaggy and Mai Lei are sharing a tub of ice cream, Scooby feels left out with Velma sympathizing with him. While Daphne came back to the mystery machine, Fred tried to apologize to her, but Daphne angrily refuses. Suddenly, white lightning strikes the van, and a white wizard laughs as he floats above them. They run, but the red wizard floats round the corner and engages the white in aerial combat. Through her binoculars, Velma sees the white wizard has 3 rings exactly like Mai Lei's. When the red wizard is knocked down, the gang runs back to the van, but the white wizard grabs Mai Lei, flies off with her, and demands her ring. The gang gives chase and use Shaggy's snack sack, fired from the ejector seat, as a surface-to-air missile. They drive off pursued by the white wizard, but the red attacks him, and the gang escapes. Velma and Mai Lei return to the Dinkley house where the white wizard attacks, but Mai Lei attacks him physically. Shaggy arrives reading from an English to Chinese dictionary and runs into the girls, allowing the wizard to steal Mai Lei's ring. At Chen's coffee, Velma can't find anything about the dragon's heart on the internet. Chen admits that he is the Red Wizard. He also tells them the story, how he became the guardian on the priceless ruby, encased inside a jade dragon, which the 4 rings will give access to the dragon in the restaurant. After having these answers, the gang sets a trap in the restaurant. That night, the White Wizard arrives at Chen's to be soaked by the sprinkler system and trapped under a giant paper lantern with a cage inside. Mayor Jones arrives in time to see the White Wizard revealed as Mr. Wang as My Lai takes his rings. As it turns out, his trip to Crystal Cove was not a business trip, but an excuse to find the dragon's heart, and knew he was close to finding it when he saw My Lai's ring. Both wizards were using jetpacks in order to fly, and the magic lightning bolts were made with homemade Tesla coils. My Lai returns the rings to Chen before she leaves for her flight to China. Shaggy wants to see her off, and when My Lai says no, Shaggy is brokenhearted. So, Fred drives them to the airport. At the docks, a boat departs with the Dragon's Heart ruby on board. As it turns out, while they were explaining Wang's plan, she used the rings to unlock the dragon and retrieve the ruby. It swerves, and the ruby flies from My Lai's hand to Shaggy, who followed her after she wasn't at the airport. Shaggy runs from My Lai's attack and leads her into a trap which Fred had planted on the Blake's boat, disguised as My Lai's escape boat. Shaggy and Scooby are watching a Vincent Van Gogh movie containing zombies. As the doorbell rings, the Vincent Van Gogh character had just turned into a zombie. They answer the door and Vincent is standing in front of them. It takes the duo a little while to realize that he's not a zombie and that he's the real Vincent Van Gogh. He claims that they won the essay competition about having dinner with Vincent. They both seem pretty pleased, but Vincent explains that only them and an Eskimo ever sent anything in. Vincent takes them to his house in his car, which is actually a hearse. The house has many special effects, including sprinklers that give the feeling that it's raining. When they enter, they are astonished to find a large and wealthy-looking house. Vincent plays a small tune on the piano and the whole place locks up. He then invites them to sit down for a meal. While eating, Vincent talks of eyes watching him all the time and that he believes creatures are lurking in the shadows, ready to attack him. Suddenly, the mutant bee, one of Vincent's movie monsters, appears. Shaggy, Scooby, and Vincent run from the dining room. Another monster, Dr. Phobos, appears near the stairwell. They head towards the front door, and Professor Janssen appears. Shaggy reaches the wooden door away, but realizes that a metal barrier is blocking their way. Another creature, unknown to Scooby, Shaggy, or Vincent himself, arrives and takes down each monster in turn. The creature claims that it is Night Fright. It then flies away. After a bit of panicking and the piano tune not working, Vincent confesses that the creatures were just actors for scaring them, but Night Fright was real. He calls for help through a secret camera installed into a statue. It turns out that the whole thing was being filmed. 2 production people stand behind the screen arguing that Vincent isn't following the script properly. Shaggy and Scooby say to the camera for them to call Mystery Incorporated for help. Night Fright appears again, and Vincent brings Shaggy and Scooby down a passage that leads to the library. There, they are trapped. Velma receives a phone call from the production people. She calls Fred, who is about to have a meal at the Bloody Steak with Daphne. He says to Daphne about Shaggy and Scooby being trapped, and that they must leave. Having waited long enough without eating, Daphne angrily sighs. Back at the house, Night Fright is breaking through the bars and he chases Scooby, Shaggy, and Vincent up some carpeted stairs. The rest of Mystery Incorporated arrive and find 2 underground pipes that lead from a power block into the house. They use this to enter the place. When attacking, Night Fright stumbles from the top of the stairs to the ground and then disappears as the Mystery Gang arrives. Vincent leads them to his room where Night Fright has chased them to. Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby barricade the door. While thinking of a plan, Daphne has a look at a few abandoned scripts, one reading, "Scream, scream, time for you to die." They realize that this is what Night Fright had been saying to them. Vincent explains that he was offered the role of Night Fright. Fred finally thinks up a trap. Vincent, Shaggy, and Scooby walk out of the room as bait. Night Fright appears once again, but this time, Vincent becomes brave and acts as if the creature is just an annoyance and not scary at all. They walk down the stairs and then back up, and Night Fright doesn't give up. They return to Vincent's room where they trap the creature. Vincent says that he was actually really scared. Night Fright turns out to be Argus Fentonpoof, the assistant of the production team, but also the writer of Night Fright himself. He wanted revenge on Vincent for rewriting his script and making it better. The executive producer of the show appears and explains that this show was brilliant. For the first time, the culprit thanked the meddling kids because he now had publicity. Sitting at Vincent's dining table, in which a starved Daphne pigs out like only Shaggy and Scooby could do, the executive producer asks if the gang would like to be part of their own show, but they refuse. At the very end, they all share a creepy laugh. Skipper Shelton's brother watches as his crewman hauls up an empty net. He decides to fish at Dead Man's Point, where they get a catch, but are attacked by fish freaks. At the Spook Museum, Daphne and Fred are reminiscing. Daphne spots a statue of Flim Flam, but Fred reminds her that he didn't meet him because he was tied up at trapping camp that summer. Then she sees a statue of Scooby-Doo's nephew, and Fred reminds her that they all promised each other they would never speak of him. The bloody steak is having an all-you-can-gorge night, but the vampire waitress informs Shaggy and Scooby that they are getting their last main course platter because they are professional diners. Shaggy explains that they do it by using the all-gulp, no air technique. They hold their breath and inhale as much food as they want. At home, Velma is updating her blog in frustration because she is angry that there are no new mysteries, as she gets an anonymous email about the missing sardine boats that disappeared off Dead Man's Point and a possible connection to the haunted oil platform in the area. She phones Daphne, but she's still on a date with Fred. She phones Shaggy, but he and Scooby are having jellied eyeball cobbler for dessert. Alone, she borrows Daphne's family's expensive boat, but has trouble finding clues in the fog. She hears a woman's voice singing to her, then sees a mermaid, who says she sent the warning and her name is Amy. The fish freaks attack the boat, but Velma gets away. In the mystery machine, Velma tells the gang about the mystery, but omits the part about the mermaid. Skipper Shelton says the only sardine boat is run by his brother, also known as Skipper Shelton. He doesn't believe in haunted oil platforms, fish freaks, or mermaids. After the gang leave, the fish freaks arrive. Amy visits Velma at home, who logs off her blog. Amy tells Velma that Skipper Shelton was taken by the fish freaks, and Velma is about to call the gang when Angie Dinkley knocks on the door to ask who the special friend is Velma said had stopped by. Velma drags Amy to the bath as Angie lets herself in with the key she uses to snoop around Velma's room when she's not there. A sound from the bathroom leads Angie to find that the window is open and there's no one there. At K Ghoul, Fred confirms that Skipper Shelton is nowhere to be found. Angel Dynamite wonders if the haunted oil platform is the same one that used to owned by Destroido, who were going to start pumping oil until a scientist shut them down due to environmental concerns. This was before Angel came to Crystal Cove, but she read the story in the papers. Shaggy finds an article in the paper that Ed Machine, CEO of Destroido, will be holding a press conference the next day. At Destroido, Ed Machine announces their new produce, Gummy Dummies, which comes in cherry, lime, and pork flavors. Velma asks permission to go out to the oil platform, but he refuses. The gang also meets Ernesto, the radical idealist from Darrow College, and his followers, who are protesting to protect Mother Earth. In Daphne's daddy's boat, the gang reaches the oil platform. It's deserted, but then the fish freaks jump out of the water and captures them. Tied up alongside Dr. Spike Kavanaugh, Destroido's former chief of geology, and the Shelton brothers, they learn that the fish freaks are going to drill for oil, which will result in a nasty oil spill due to the instability of the ground. As the drilling starts, Amy arrives and frees everyone. Scooby and Shaggy, who can hold their breath a long time, are sent down to turn the drill off and then be chased by the fish freaks right into one of Fred's traps. The plan works, and the freaks are revealed as Ernesto and his followers, who found Dr. Kavanaugh's plan in Destroido's trash and decided it would make them enough money to fund their various protests. The gang is shocked to learn that they were basically willing to destroy the planet in order to save it. After they are taken away by the police, Amy reveals she is not a mermaid, but Dr. Kavanaugh's wife, who read Velma's blog and tricked her into helping. Velma learns that since Destroido covered up the whole incident 20 years ago, it was never in the papers. papers. At K. Ghoul, Velma confronts Angel with the facts and accuses her of being Cassidy Williams, one of the members of the original Mystery Incorporated who vanished in the caves beneath Crystal Cove. The teen couple Brenda and Dylan is out of the hospital and are at creepy spooky Terrorland and just want to relax and ride a few rides. While on the Nauseator, it suddenly stops and a manticore attacks them. That night, Angel sneaks into Destroido, and while she does sneak, past all the security points, she is caught by Ed Machine. She tells him that she is here to see Mr. E. She tells him that the gang retrieved pieces of the planispheric disc, but reminds him she's working with him. She also expresses her concern for the kids with Pericles on the loose. Mr. E tells her as long as Fred is alive, the other two will not move a muscle. At City Hall, Mayor Jones tells the gang that he actually needs their help as the manticore may be his fault. He was looking around the internet for something to help the park when he found haunted attractions for sale advertising an ancient Persian temple haunted by a manticore, paid them in leftover Que Horrifico t-shirts, and they shipped the temple up here. Unfortunately, the manticore is actually hurting tourism. Fred is excited to be working for, if not with, his dad. At the amusement park, the gang meets the owner, Winslow Fletch, and his daughter, Hot Dog Water, who Velma knows from the science fair circuit. The park is going broke and will have to close, especially after Hot Dog Water made a graph showing their plummet. Fred asks to keep the park open just for a while. Winslow is hesitant, but agrees. In the temple, the manticore appears and chases the gang, but they lose it and hop on a dark ride to get to the exit. The manticore attacks them, knocking the car off the track, but they jump onto another passing car. Fred decides that if they're going to solve this mystery, they need to find out more about the temple. At K. Ghoul, Velma checks the website the mayor got the temple from and finds it's now closed and a fake. The attractions they claim to have sold include the Statue of Liberty as well as many other famous landmarks. Only someone with computer skills could have made the website. Fred sends Shaggy and Scooby back to the park to investigate while he and the girls talk to the mayor. After the rest of the gang leaves, Angel discusses her real identity with Velma and asks where their piece of the disc is. Fred, Daphne, and Velma visit Mayor Jones at City Hall, where he claims to be examining plans for his mayoral library. He found the website through an internet search. At creepy, spooky Terrorland, Shaggy and Scooby check the cotton candy for clues and then move on the churros, but lose their appetite after smelling them. Winslow Fletcher and Hot Dog Water will have to give away 5,000 Chargar Gothicon dolls since the gang hasn't solved the manticore problem. Shaggy and Scooby ride the roller coaster to look for clues, but are grabbed by the manticore and dropped onto a merry-go-round, then snatched again and dropped onto a bouncy castle. The rest of the gang arrives. Fletcher asks if they are okay, but tells them they need pay for the rides. While explaining what happened, they notice Shaggy and Scooby are talking in high-pitched voices. Fletcher announces he's closing the park, which Hot Dog Water fully supports, but Fred says his father wants the park to succeed and is counting on the gang to make sure that happens. At home, Fred tells Velma they need rope, a stapler, tennis rackets, and 4 pounds of halibut, which is in his room for emergency reasons. In Fred's room, Velma finds Mayor Jones going through Fred's drawers. After she meets up with Fred, he tells her he gave the disc piece to Shaggy and Scooby, as they are the last ones to have anything of value. At the park, Daphne is painting Shaggy and Scooby, who feel tortured with nacho cheese, before they are smothered in halibut at Attract the Manticore. They will walk back and forth in front of the temple until it appears. When that happens, the others will bash it with tennis rackets and staple its wings to the ground. Whilst Fred is saying this, Shaggy and Scooby have licked the cheese off themselves and eaten the halibut. Velma smells something familiar and the manticore attacks, seizing Daphne. Fred chases along the roller coaster and grabs her leg. Velma grabs him. Shaggy grabs her, and Scooby launches himself off the ride at the manticore, eventually forcing it to crash into a fortune-teller machine. The creature deflates and is unmasked as Hot Dog Water. She made that website as she has computer skills, and that scent Velma smelled was grimy hot dog water. As it turns out, Hot Dog Water was planning to turn the steel in the park rides into super helium to sell to the Australian Zeppelin fleet. She ends by saying she would been rich and showed up Velma in the process. Deputy Bucky comes and arrests Marcy. At Destroido, Angel tells Mr. E she put a bug on Velma and that Shaggy and Scooby have the disc, but that's all. Mr. E says that everything will be fine, especially since Scooby is more trustworthy than Pericles ever was. One night, Mayor Jones examines his piece of the planispheric disc in a safe above his bed when he hears something outside his door. Thinking it's Fred, he checks, but Fred is asleep. A sudden shout wakes Fred, who sees his father running away in fear and a shadowy figure at the hall's end. The next day, Fred tells the gang his dad has been screaming and sleeping in the yard for 2 weeks. Shaggy offers to sleep over, and Velma mentions her mom's herbal remedies. Daphne worries Fred is becoming obsessed with their relationship. That night, Shaggy and Scooby stay over. After a photo of Fred's mother falls, they make snacks and watch a Vincent van Gogh movie. Later, objects fly in the mayor's room, and pizza comes to life to attack Shaggy and Scooby. Fred rescues his dad. They flee, spotting the figure upstairs. At City Hall, Fred vows to solve the mystery. Fred sets cameras and invites Lady Marmalade for a seance. The board spells, "I am an old friend, and I want what you took from me," before bursting into flames. The mayor is pulled inside, but video shows he faked it. Scooby finds a modified fire trap. That night, the gang traps the ghost, revealed as Professor Pericles, who hacked Fred's laptop and staged the haunting to steal the disc piece. He escapes, leaving the mayor tied in the cellar, and Daphne remains suspicious. The gang and Sheriff Stone fail to trap the piranha goat, a masked villain who wants to disrupt the water supply. Sheriff Stone in disguise, and he is captured as he tries to get away from him. The culprit is Deputy Bucky, who planned all this to get the sheriff's job because he was tired of being a deputy, and whenever he did try to get promoted, he failed his exams. Stone tells Bucky that he was like a father to him, but Bucky inquires that he's 20 years older than Stone. He used CGI to create his bullets, which is what gave him away to Velma. One of the papers in the files they got from Bucky included cartoon sketches of the bullets. Sheriff Bronson admits that he owes the kids one, but when Fred puts his hand on his shoulder, Stone recoils in disgust. The next day, Mayor Jones awards Stone the trophy he previously gave to Dead Justice, and informs the people of Crystal Cove that they've got a new sheriff in town. When Stone thanked Mayor Jones for giving him his job back and giving him a raise, Jones tells him that an hour ago, his job was free, making Stone laugh, thinking that Jones was joking. When Fred asks his dad's thanks about solving the mystery, Mayor Jones avoids the question by saying he has a work meeting to go to, then walks in the wrong direction, while Fred tells him that the city hall is the other way. As Fred wonders why he even bothers, Daphne assures him that his father still cares about him in his own way, and he just needs time. Fred and Daphne then go to the clam cabin, and Fred explains how Daphne is the only one who really understands him. Fred makes a proposing gesture to Daphne, asking if she will ride shotgun with him forever, and putting an onion ring on her finger. Daphne accepts, just as long as they get married after graduation, and they kiss. Night Ranger, observing from a distance, gives a gesture of satisfaction and does a cool, backwards walk. 20 years ago, the original Mystery Inc. explored an old Spanish church and discovered a document showing the planispheric disk observed by the Freak of Crystal Cove. In the present, the gang meets for breakfast, where Daphne tries to discuss her engagement with Fred, but he's distracted by a new trap monitoring app. Velma examines their disk piece, and Scooby's hot sauce comment leads her to realize the writing is backwards and in Spanish. They notice many Spanish books in the Darrow Archives trunk, and take them to Darrow University for translation help from H.P. Hatecraft. Hatecraft refuses at first, busy imitating dusk novelist Regina Wentworth, until they offer to help him write for teens. As they leave, the mystery machine explodes, and a masked figure, the Obliteratrix, attacks with concussion bombs. They escape into a dusk reading where the dean spots them. Meanwhile, Angel suspects Pericles' involvement, but Mr. E orders only surveillance. Fred vows to avenge the mystery machine, believing it destroyed. Shaggy and Scooby help Hatecraft with his teen novel, while Velma, Daphne, and Fred search the library for clues without the trunk. A signal from Fred's phone reveals the mystery machine is intact. They pick up Shaggy and Scooby, and Hatecraft borrows a dusk-themed campus van. At an old railroad yard, they recover the mystery machine but face the heavily armed Obliteratrix again. Fred traps her briefly, but she vanishes. Hatecraft loses his job when the dean learns about the van. Pericles, watching, decides to keep the gang alive for now. With the trunk back, they find a clue about colored glass, reminding Scooby of the old Spanish church. There, they find a pin from the original Mystery Inc. and a hidden underground shaft. Before they can explore, the Obliteratrix attacks again. Angel Dynamite arrives, defeats her, and unmasks her as Alice May. Alice May reveals that Mr. E freed her from prison and sent her to attack the gang, using special effects and weapons supplied through Destroido's Quest research laboratories. The plan was to lure Pericles away from guarding his stolen piece of the planispheric disc. The sheriff arrests Alice again, assuring it won't happen a second time. The dean forgives Hatecraft and offers his job back after the Japanese rights to his book start earning money for the university. When asked how she knew where they were, Angel admits she is Cassidy Williams, a former member of the first Mystery Inc. She explains they were forced to leave town after threats to their families and warns the current gang to hand over their disc piece to avoid danger. The gang refuses, with Fred declaring the mystery ends on their terms. As they leave, the freak watches from the church roof, reciting a menacing poem. 20 years ago, the original Mystery Incorporated explored Crystal Cove's caves using a map they found. They discovered a chest containing only one piece of the planispheric disc. Taking it triggered a booby trap and they escaped, though Reeves dropped her locket. In the present, Velma emails the gang midnight. Her mother tells her to sleep, while Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby also prepare to leave. Fred, welding in his garage, gets the message and goes inside, where Mayor Jones is sadly looking at a photo of Fred's mother. After a tense exchange, Jones apologizes, and Fred steals the City Hall key and takes a picture of his mother. Meeting outside City Hall, the gang is still upset with Velma for siding with Cassidy. Inside, they search Jones's office and find a scroll with a disc drawing and a paper copy of a piece. Before leaving, they encounter the freak of Crystal Cove and, fleeing in fear, run into Sheriff Stone. The gang is locked in a police cell as their parents demand Sheriff Stone release them, but he refuses until Mayor Jones says he won't press charges. Freed, Fred tries to apologize to his father, who refuses to listen. Daphne's father forbids her from seeing Fred, but is stunned when she reveals they are secretly engaged, shocking everyone. As tensions rise, Fred quietly instructs Shaggy and Scooby to guard the disc piece and Velma to protect the scroll. At home, Shaggy's parents discuss sending him to military school. After they leave, Shaggy and Scooby check their secret fridge, where the disc pieces are hidden inside a pizza box. The freak attacks, forcing them to flee. Ed Machine rescues them and drives the gang to K. Ghoul. Angel offers a truce, but they lock her in her studio. She calls Ed, but he's confronted by Professor Pericles instead, leading to Ed's death. The gang returns to the old Spanish church, which Fred says is where the mystery began and will end. Velma and Shaggy question Fred and Daphne about hiding their engagement, but Daphne points out they hid their own relationship. Using the paper copy and their disc piece, Velma discovers coordinates to the treasure. Scooby enters them into the GPS, leading to an empty chest. Unaware they're being tracked by Professor Pericles, the gang is ambushed by the freak, who knocks out Pericles, steals the piece, and flees. Fred accidentally triggers a trap, flooding the area. Both the freak and gang are swept away. On a cliff, Fred nearly falls, but the freak saves him. Fred tackles and unmasks him, revealing his father. Fred explains he discovered the truth after realizing photos of his mother were fake, with dates matching his supposed birthday, and demands to know why his father did it. Years ago, the mayor came to Crystal Cove seeking the cursed treasure and took a job at Darrow University's history department for access to town archives. Learning about the conquistadors, he disguised himself as the freak to search for the planispheric disc. When the original Mystery Inc. discovered a piece, he teamed up with Professor Pericles to steal it, fabricating documents accusing their parents of crimes to drive them out of town. Seeing Pericles as a threat, he drugged him, stole the piece, and anonymously tipped off police, leading to Pericles' lifelong sentence at the animal asylum. Becoming mayor let him continue his search. He admits he doesn't know where Fred's mother is, but reveals Judy Reeves is her name, making Brad Chills Fred's real father. Years later, he took young Fred from Brad and Judy to keep them away. Fred, feeling used, storms off as Sheriff Stone arrests the mayor. Fred goes to the cliff where Daphne comforts him. He is very upset that everything about his life was a lie, and his real parents are out there somewhere and he did not know about them. Daphne says she will help him find his true family, but saddened. Fred calls off his engagement to Daphne and announces he is leaving Crystal Cove to search of his real parents. Before he is out of sight, Fred declares that Mystery Incorporated is dead. Shaggy and Scooby try to stop Fred, but his parents get in their way, telling him that, after much thought, they are sending Shaggy to military school and Scooby to live on a farm. Velma tries to comfort a broken-hearted Daphne, but she blames Velma for not telling them everything, and leaves to her mom and dad, with Velma's parents taking her home. Scooby sadly goes into the car where Professor Pericles holds the two pieces, gloats, and leaves. Before Pericles is out of sight, Scooby vows that he will get the gang back together. Months after Mystery Incorporated split up, Crystal Cove falls into chaos. Crybaby Clown chases Sheriff Stone, throwing an explosive that forces him to jump clear. New Mayor Janet Nettles watches in shock when a masked figure appears, warning her to find the second Mystery Incorporated, or her time as mayor will be short. He reveals Scooby's location, but leaves her to find the others. Scooby, held in solitary on a farm for trying to escape, insists he must stop Professor Pericles. He escapes successfully and is picked up by Mayor Nettles, who shares information about his friends. Scooby asks for Scooby snacks, which she has. They rescue Shaggy from a military bunker bursting through the wall in a tank. Finally, they find Fred, now scruffy and searching for his parents. Shaggy and Scooby convince him to return, though Fred vows to resume his search once the mystery is solved. When the three return to town, Crybaby Clown attacks. Fred runs but is caught in one of his own traps. A masked figure frees him, revealing she built it. Recognizing her voice, Fred realizes it's Velma and hugs her. As Scooby and Shaggy arrive in the mystery machine, Velma hides her face. They try to tackle her, but she sidesteps and then reveals herself. Scooby and Shaggy hug her, and she jokes about their affection. They drive to a mountain overlooking the ruined city. Velma admits she avoided mysteries after the gang split, but seeing the chaos, she decided to reunite them. She hasn't heard from Mr. E, ignored Cassidy, and believes Pericles drowned. Scooby reveals Pericles is alive with the planispheric disc pieces. Fred says they must first get Daphne. At the bloody stake, they find her on a date with actor Baylor Hotner. Mistaking Fred for a hobo, Daphne ignores him. The gang arrives at City Hall, where a town meeting discusses Crybaby Clown. The townspeople are thrilled to see them reunited. Shaggy lies to his surprised parents, saying he was promoted to general and released for undercover work with Scooby. Crybaby Clown interrupts, demanding $5 million or continued terror. Sheriff Stone tries to appease him, but the gang refuses. The villain cuts the lights and sets off a giant diaper bomb, causing panic. Everyone escapes. Fred visits Daphne's mansion, but she and Mr. Blake are unhappy to see him. She calls the gang kids from her school and refuses to return, choosing Baylor over mystery solving. Fred insists she'll join later. Fred's donut shop trap fails without Daphne, and Crybaby Clown escapes, blowing up Chen's fireworks, causing citywide chaos. Velma notes the town will hate them more. Fred laments that Mystery Inc. won't be the same without Daphne. In Russia, a night guard is on watch inside a Russian museum. Velma and Hot Dog Water have broken into the museum and are trying to break into Baba Yaga's house while working for Mr. E. When they cannot reach the house, Mr. E decides that the only option is to buy it. After they leave, the figure of Baba Yaga comes to life and attacks the guard. At Crystal Cove High, Velma and Hot Dog Water are talking about a great idea that the others will agree with. Fred returns to school along with the others. Gary and Ethan greet Fred coldly, as after Fred left, they had to forfeit the championship. This resulted in them losing their scholarships and, therefore, their chance of going to college next year. Fred is still upset when he sees Daphne walking with Baylor, despite Shaggy trying to ensure Fred, Velma, and Shaggy do not help. Fred then starts to describe a trap to separate them, but Velma tells him firmly that Daphne isn't, and probably never will be ready to come back to the gang. Velma talks the gang into allowing Hot Dog Water, whose real name is Marcy, to replace Daphne. As it turns out, she was given early probation for redesigning the prison's security system. Shaggy and Scooby welcome her in, especially after she offers them candy she made in prison. Fred allows her in as well, but states in sadness he will not be calling her New Daphne. After arriving in America, Curator Vronsky and his assistant are ambushed by Baba Yaga's house, snatching up the assistant. Later that night, the gang is driving together and receives a call from a policeman who encountered Baba Yaga, which was heading towards the woods. While heading towards the woods, Mystery Inc. discover the house. Velma and Marcy try to enter, but when they open the door, Baba Yaga is waiting behind it. She chases them around the house, trying to capture them, but then crashes into a rock, and the house hobbles off into the woods again, leaving behind a trail of black, mysterious liquid. After Mayor Nettles, Sheriff Stone, and the curator Vronsky arrive, they investigate the clearing and report the incident. Velma and Marcy rush to the side to call Mr. E, whom tells them to find what is inside the house and retrieve it no matter what. Scooby overhears their conversation and tells Fred and Shaggy later at Fred's house, which has become a pigsty. While Shaggy is shocked by this, Fred does point out Velma was sore with them for leaving her, but the three decide to go back and investigate what the two girls are after and get some answers. Meanwhile, Velma and Marcy follow the trail of fluid and find the house. Inside, they find a piece of the planispheric disc. The rest of the gang is waiting behind them and confronts Velma about teaming up with Mr. E. Velma insists that she only joined Mr. E because there was no other option. She tells the gang that they can trust her and that she only wants to protect the disc pieces from Professor Pericles. The house later awakens and tosses them out. Baba Yaga appears and threatens the gang if they follow her again. The disc piece was saved due to it becoming lodged in Mr. Trapple's eye. There is more of that same black liquid on the ground. Marcy clarifies the liquid as being a type of oil called hydraulic fluid, which is used in roller coasters, due to her father owning an amusement park. They also find a piece of Fabergé egg, which was clarified by a reluctant Daphne, whose mother owns Fabergé eggs. Afterwards, they leave. Afterwards, Hot Dog Water feels bad about what Daphne did, but Fred just brushes it off. Shaggy asks what else they found out about the liquid, and Velma explains the only other use the oil has is on ships, and the exhibit came to America on a cargo ship. Later, they chase the house out of the ship and into the city, where Shaggy and Scooby use a rope and the crossbows to trip the house. After the house trips, Baba Yaga falls out and is taken into custody after being revealed as Curator Vronsky. He brought the Baba Yaga house so he could sell stolen Fabergé eggs on the black market. Vronsky made modifications to the house which allowed it to move and also controlled the house with switches inside his cane. He had kidnapped his assistant because she was getting suspicious of his causes for wanting to take it for free to America. After taking damage to the leg, he commanded it to run off so he could repair it, but couldn't achieve this due to Mystery Inc. following him constantly. He also couldn't leave the house because of the amount of eggs he had inside. His assistant says that she came along with him because she had a hunch he was up to something. She thanks the gang for saving the stolen Fabergé eggs. Everyone is happy they were able to solve the mystery and are glad Hot Dog Water is with them. While Fred is glad to have her aboard, he still wishes Daphne was with them as well. Later, Mr. E confronts Marcy at her home about Velma double-crossing him. She begs him to give her a second chance. Mr. E, however, warns her that Mystery Incorporated's days are numbered. Fred is on the psychiatrist's couch talking about traps and their opposite, Daphne. After he leaves, the lights go out, Crybaby Clown comes in through the window and kidnaps Dr. Henkelfust. Fred returns to the office and finds it empty. At home, Daphne retires for the night. She is woken by a crab crawling across her and finds that Fred has towed her bed to the beach for a romantic picnic. Daphne tells Fred it's too late for this, as she has moved on, and so should he. In the Jones mansion, Shaggy is trying on a wig, but doesn't like it. Velma reads in the paper that Fred's therapist has gone missing, but he doesn't care about anything except Daphne. Shaggy and Scooby go to get some real fake hair. Velma becomes angry that no one is interested in mystery solving, but Hot Dog Water assures Velma she cares, so they investigate together. In the hair salon, Angel Dynamite tells Gorgeous G to cut it all off. After briefly protesting, G shaves off Angel's afro. While Angel, who now thinks of herself as Cassidy Williams, is admiring her new look in the bathroom, Mr. E enters and tells her they're coming back for Fred. As G is cleaning up the hair, Crybaby Clown drives through the window, kidnaps her and drives off, narrowly missing Shaggy and Scooby. As the media photographs the crime scene, the mayor's new publicist, J.R. Kipple, places a teddy bear in the shot to try and create a fear fest and bring the tourists back. While Shaggy and Scooby are trying on wigs, Velma finds an electronic component on the ground. Cassidy tries to apologize to the gang, but they reject her. Across the street, Baylor Hotner and Daphne are dress shopping. Fred makes suggestions, all of which are terrible clothing choices, but Daphne accepts Baylor's instead. At the medical center, Shaggy drops his mom off at the plastic surgeon's office, only to find it has been wrecked, and the receptionist pinned to the wall with ice cream cones by the clown. Velma and Hot Dog Water have rigged up a transistor radio to pick up the signal from the transmitter they found at the salon. Fred just sees this as an opportunity to catch the bad guy and impress Daphne. Tracking the signal in the mystery machine, Fred fires his trap and catches Daphne. She has a transmitter planted just under the skin of her ankle. Crybaby Clown drives up and attempts to grab Daphne, but Fred saves her, just before the press arrive, having been alerted by Junior Kipple. Baylor Hotner arrives and announces that he and Daphne are leaving for Hollywood tonight, together and will make her a star. Fred goes into a catatonic state at hearing this and falls to the ground. Suspecting J.R. Kipple, the gang travel to his home just in time to see Crybaby Clown abduct him. Back in Fred's room, they try to find a connection between the victims. But even after searching the computer, Velma and Hot Dog Water fail. Fred comes out of his trance and announces he's solved the mystery. At Crystal Cove Airport, Crybaby Clown drives onto a jet where the kidnapped victims and Daphne are tied to their seats. He announces that he's taking them back to his special clown town, but discovers that the flight crew has been replaced by Shaggy and Scooby. He attacks them, the plane starts up, and Fred, Velma, and Hot Dog Water fall out the ramp onto the tarmac. Following in the Mystery Machine, Fred jumps onto the plane as it takes off and takes the controls after it is struck by lightning. Throwing the plane around causes Crybaby Clown, the only one not strapped in, to be thrown around and Fred knocks him out. Back at the airport, the clown is unmasked as Baylor Hotner, who came to Crystal Cove to research the part of a crazed clown for his upcoming blockbuster movie. He used his knowledge of Hollywood makeup and effects and a buggy he stole from the backlot to bring his clown to life. The reason he kidnapped 4 people to comprise his entourage, it was everything he needed to be a great actor. He not only put trackers on them, but reveals that Daphne was also a part of the plan as his innocent small-town girl, to make him look like a nice guy. Daphne slaps Baylor and breaks up with him, stating that the gang is her friends. She thanks her friends for saving her. Shaggy assures her she's one of them. Fred hesitantly asks Daphne if she wants to come back to the gang, and she gladly accepts. The gang embraces with Scooby happily cheering that Daphne's back. Velma, however, looks over at Hot Dog Water, who looks down sadly. Horbert Feist wakes from a nightmare, drives from his home to the Crystal Cove Assurance Bank and jumps out of the car just before it crashes into the building. The Dreamweaver walks through the flames, laughing. The gang offer Hot Dog Water a Scooby-sized repast to soften the blow of being replaced by Daphne and Mystery Incorporated. After she leaves, she phones Mr. E and says she has Velma right where she wants her. Shaggy points out a report in the newspaper about local banker Horbert Feist being arrested for driving his car into his own bank, and the gang decide to investigate to wipe away their soul-crushing guilt. As the sheriff locks Feist up, the gang arrives and asks what he knows about him. The sheriff denies ever having seen the thief before, even though nothing has been stolen. Feist tells the gang he had a dream where he was trapped in a Escher-like maze being pursued by the Dreamweaver, who said, "Level 99, and the next thing he knew, he was driving his car into the bank. When Velma asks the gang what level 99 means, Shaggy is evasive. They return to Fred's room, which is a mess, and Daphne tells him she just wants to be friends. Francelie is chased through a maze by the Dreamweaver, who catches her in ropes of binding and says 20-sided dice. On her TV show, she reveals that her famous cornbread stuffin' contains no corn and is arrested for fraud. In jail, Francelie asks Sheriff Stone how he could do this to someone he's known since they were children, but he denies ever seeing her face before and then becomes flustered when Daphne points out it's on the box he's holding. Francelie tells the gang what happened to her and warns that Melville Keisterbaum will be next. Daphne drives the gang to the Keisterbaum mansion just before it explodes. Velma finds an unusual broken light bulb in the wreckage. Keisterbaum was napping on the couch when he awoke to find himself standing in the garden with an empty canister of napalm. He dreamt of a labyrinth, and the Dreamweaver and Shaggy denies having played Crips and Creatures. Then he admits he did until one day he thought his science teacher was a bugbear and smote his with a magic missile. Sheriff Stone arrives and Keisterbaum warns him that he's next. An elf, a dwarf, and a human defeat a horde of orcs and stand in the lair of the Dreamweaver. Young Bronson Stone asks what they do, and they make fun of the situation. Adult Bronson Stone says the Dreamweaver has come out of the game to finish what he started because they stopped playing C&C. Mr. E phones Velma, but she tells the gang it was a wrong number. Shaggy and Scooby are assigned to keep the sheriff awake and fail. In the Dream Labyrinth, Bronson leads them to the exit, but the Dreamweaver blocks them. He turns Shaggy into a rabbit, Bronson to stone, and threatens Scooby with a tidal wave, until Fred wakes them with a bucket of water. Shaggy realizes the Dreamweaver holds his orb in the wrong hand. In the labyrinth, Bronson Stone is cornered by the Dreamweaver and tells him that it is the end of the game, but then Bronson Stone tells him that it is time for some magic of his own. He then unmasks himself as Fred, who tells him to confess, and the Dreamweaver gets scared. Fred unmasks himself as Shaggy, who tells him to confess, and the Dreamweaver gets confused. Shaggy unmasks himself as Daphne, who tells him to confess. The Dreamweaver backs away, and Daphne unmasks herself as Velma, who tells him to confess. Velma unmasks herself as Scooby-Doo, who tells him to confess. The Dreamweaver screams in terror and then trips with his cloak, causing him to drop the orb and the orb to break. Horbert Feist wakes up and confesses that he is the Dreamweaver. Velma reveals that they became suspicious of Feist because Dreamweaver held the orb in his left hand, and he is also a lefty. Using a special light bulb that stimulates REM sleep as well as a dream machine that he built, Feist projected his thoughts into other people's dreams, spending millions of dollars that he loaned to himself from his own bank to build his dream machine, prompting him to crash the car into the bank to cover up his tracks. He admits he did it because Bronson took away his game figure as a child. Back at Fred's place, the gang finds the place tidy and clean, despite not cleaning the place up themselves. Soon after, Brad Chills and Judy Reeves appear and announce that they are his parents and they're back. Shaggy and Scooby are sharing an ice cream cone when the traveling cabinet of curiosities arrives in town and sets up in the main street. The owner, Gene Shepard, invites the curious townspeople to enter and be amazed. They go in to view the exhibits, including one straight from the primitive wilds of Wisconsin, that exotic land of caftans and cheese, the ho-dog of horror. Shaggy dismisses it as a fake, and they leave. That night, Daisy Blake is attacked in her room. Fred's real parents, Brad and Judy, invite him to ask them any questions he might have. When Fred asks why they stayed away, they tell him Mayor Jones threatened to do him harm, bodily harm, if they came back. Velma and Shaggy remark on Fred's trap-making skills, and his parents reveal that they are Sternum and Sternum, the husband and wife team of mystery solvers who invented the Flautenhauer 8000. Brad and Judy's dog Nova appears and jumps on Brad's lap. Scooby is smitten and fantasizes about walking through a meadow with her. Daphne gets a call from Daisy, who tells her about the attack. The creature didn't harm Daisy, it just stole an expensive ruby necklace given to her by her wealthy neurosurgeon fiancé, and a cheap bell necklace Daphne gave her for her birthday. Velma asks Daisy for a description of the creature. Scooby asks Fred for advice on love, and Fred laughs at the idea of asking him. He asks Velma, and she's dismissive of the idea. At something cheesy this way comes, Daphne is finalizing the details for her mother's party with Mr. Fussbuster. His assistant chops cheese with a knife held in his foot. Velma sketches the creature that attacked Daisy on her tablet, and Scooby recognizes it as the ho-dog from the curio wagon. The gang visits the exhibit and is told by Shepard that he only opens the high-security box beneath the ho-dog once a year because the contents need to breathe. When he leaves, the lights go out, a bell rings, and the ho-dog comes to life. It attempts to grab the key to the box, but Fred dazzles it with a flashbulb and it leaves. Sheriff Stone arrives and says as no law has been broken, he can do nothing. Shepard goes back into the curio wagon and opens the box to ensure the contents are still safe. At the Blake mansion, the party to welcome Brad and Judy home is in full swing when Ned Fussbuster realizes one of the cheese plates is empty. He tells Roberto to refill it. Daphne gives Fred's real mom the locket she found. Scooby and Nova eat cheese together. Shaggy is bummed because his best chowing buddy is more interested in some female. Velma remarks that this is payback. Hot dog water arrives and waves at Velma, who waves back. Outside, Sheriff Stone is looking longingly at the cheese through the window when he hears a bell and sees something in the bushes. The ho-dog jumps through a window into the mansion and attacks the guests. When Nova tries to run away, the bell on her collar rings and attracts the creature, which seizes her and leaves. The guests discover they have been robbed of their jewelry. The gang drives to the curio wagon and discover the loot. Gene Shepard is there. He is arrested. Mayor Nettles rewards Mystery Incorporated with their own office in City Hall basement, aka the junk room. Scooby wonders why they didn't find Nova. Daphne thinks there is something wrong, and Velma suspects it has something to do with the bells. She looks into the history of using bells to train animals. Sheriff Stone and the gang leave the key to the box where the ho-dog can steal it. The creature returns to the curio wagon, unlocks the box, extracts the contents, and leaves. Fred diverts the creature with a bell and traps it in a cage. The mysterious object is revealed to be a wheel of cheese, and the ho-dog is revealed as Roberto, who is really a monkey. Ned Foosbuster appears atop Something Cheesy This Way Comes holding Nova. He tells how, as a sailor working the trade boats in Indonesia, he learned to train a monkey to steal using bells, though the monkey would steal bells too, which began to drive him crazy. They were trying to steal a 500-year-old cheese made in Crystal Cove by a master Spanish cheesemaker and retired to the Netherlands. He ends his confession by saying that the Hodog costume was the only way to get it due to Shepard's security. Scooby throws the cheese at Fussbuster, who drops Nova, and Scooby catches her. Fussbuster is arrested with his monkey. Shepard tells the gang they can keep the cheese because it is cracked and worthless. He leaves, but not before mysteriously telling them that the cheese told him to come to Crystal Cove. A glow from the crack in the cheese reveals that another piece of the planispheric disk is inside. Cassidy Williams, Brad Chills, Judy Reeves, and Mr. E meet up in the wilderness. They all deny they arranged it, but Professor Pericles appears and says he has a proposition for them. At the Pretenso Gallery, an art exhibition is opening. Cassidy Williams tells Brad Chiles and Judy Reeves that they have to talk, but Brad says it's not a good time. Randy Warsaw unveils his latest masterpiece, Junk. The exhibit comes to life, grabs the singer Eco, swallows her, and then collapses, leaving her as a golden statue. In Mystery Incorporated's office, Velma shows a report on the show's opening to the gang, just as Mayor Nettles arrives with the living work of art. She wants them to solve the mystery. Mystery Inc. arrives at Artworks and try to blend in. Randy Warsaw breaks Velma's glasses and names her Jinkies, his new muse. He rips off Fred's shirt and names him Beef. He puts a wig on Scooby and names him Frico, his emo art rock band's new lead singer. Then he makes Shaggy a worker in Randy Warsaw's Artworks. Daphne asks about her, but Warsaw calls her boring and dismisses her. When Fred asks Warshaw doesn't he like Daphne's hair, Warshaw sarcastically answers that he likes her hair on a pony, offending Daphne even more. Shaggy talks to his fellow worker, worker number 1, who says things will change someday. Randy Warsaw introduces Velma Jinkies to his old muse, Cleo, who he tells to shoo. Fred and Daphne examine Junk, which comes to life again, attacks Warsaw, grabs Cleo, and collapses, leaving her as a golden statue. Back in the City Hall basement, Velma, still without her glasses, thinks the two statues remind her of something. Cassidy surprises Brad and Judy at home and asks them to think of Freddy and not about the treasure. They warn her to stay out of their way. At Artworks, Daphne sees worker number 1 leave and post a package, so she calls Fred, but he's busy being painted on a cow. She follows but is pulled into an alley. Worker number 1 admits that whenever he makes a piece for Randy Warsaw, he makes a copy and sells it himself. Junk appears behind him, swallows him, and attacks Daphne. Fred and the rest of the gang arrive in the Mystery Machine, pick up Daphne and drive off, pursued by Junk. After a chase, Junk breaks up again, leaving another golden statue. Randy Warsaw refuses to destroy Junk, but, at Velma's suggestion, decides to let it consume him. At their office, after looking at the 3 statues, Velma says it looks familiar. Sheriff Stone recognizes the 3 statues as the painting 1001 Bavarian Nights by Albrecht von Kartoffelkopf. Seeing the accordions in the picture, Shaggy plays a song by his favorite polka band, the Kaiser Wursts, which, when slowed down, sounds just like Sunday Around Noonish. At the gallery, Scooby as Frico performs with Sunday Around Noonish for the first time, but is interrupted when Junk arrives and attacks Randy Warsaw. Fred's trap stops it, and Daphne reveals that the paralysis was caused by a strand of brewer's yeast used only in Bavaria, which allowed them to reverse the effect. The culprit is Butch Furbanks, aka Hans von Schönengruber, who released an album of classical accordion music which reached number 1 in the Bavarian hit parade. Then, Randy Warsaw turned him into a dark band leader playing horrible intellectual music. In revenge, Furbanks created Junk with a remote control device built into his guitar to destroy Warshaw's career. Afterwards, Warsaw thanks the gang for their help, and then fires them as they no longer interest him and calls them horribly boring and rudely tells them to leave. As Warsaw walks away, Scooby asks him if he can keep his wig. As the gang drives away, Cassidy Williams comes on the radio with a new show about the evil that resides in Crystal Cove. A family has booked an extended vacation at the Burlington Library. A robed figure resembling the Egyptian god Anubis transforms into a wolf-like creature and attacks them. Mystery Incorporated is traveling to a ski resort, during which they encounter an avalanche, which blocked the road and somehow damaging the mystery machine. Needing to repair it, Fred drives the van up a hill, looking for a place to commence work on it. Finding the Burlington Library, which functions as a free hotel, the gang decides to spend the night there. Dan Flunk, the manager, shows the gang around the library as he explains its history. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy find the kitchen and begin eating, only to be attacked by the cook, Don Fong, who shapeshifts into a red monster. Scooby and Shaggy escape, and the gang investigate the kitchen only to find no trace of the cook. Shaggy and Daphne then get ready for bed, and Fred and Scooby work on the mystery machine, while Velma goes to the library to read. Velma is reading when she hears Dean Fank talking on her phone about taking over the library. Daphne gets out of the shower as she is attacked by what looks like a gorgon. Fred and Scooby come inside after fixing the mystery machine and encounter the cranky cook who throws a chicken at them. They leave to check on Shaggy but find his room is locked. Shaggy and Daphne are kissing, but Daphne thinks she's kissing Fred. Scooby takes a look around trying to find Shaggy. He thinks he finds Shaggy in a bathroom, but gets attacked by a figure wearing an Anubis mask. As he runs in fear, he suddenly wakes up to realize he's actually sleeping next to the fire in his room. Velma is in the library and sees both a stuffed orangutan attack her and a phantom train driving into the library. Velma runs and finds into Fred and Scooby. They go looking for Shaggy again, and Fred busts into Shaggy's room to find Daphne sleeping cozily, snuggled up against Shaggy. After Fred and Scooby recover from the shock, Velma realizes the incidents were the result of inhaling fumes from terror wood and that the monsters were just hallucinations. They set a trap and find that Dan Flunk was behind the Anubis mask. Dan wanted to force the library to close because he's been in the library ever since he was born. Hates it because it's constantly cold, and wasn't allowed to leave unless it closed. He planned to get it closed so he could finally move somewhere warm. Dean Fank tells the gang she won't close the library and likes it as is, and that she has fallen in love with Don Fong. As they talk to Dean Fank, a book is thrown from an upstairs window and lands at their feet. This book is a tome on alchemy, and was written by the man who created the planispheric disc. Velma says it's a user manual for the disc. Cassidy takes pictures of the Darrows from their family archives in Velma's room and places it up on the wall, saying out loud to herself that they were also mystery solvers, leaving it up to Velma to figure out. Mayor Nettles wants the gang to investigate a house that's presumably haunted, according to some reports of the people in the neighborhood. Once inside, Fred says that once they finish the house's research, they have to relocate the planispheric disc. Shaggy and Scooby say they'll do it while the others stay in the house, but then Daphne tells everyone that Fred was the last one who hid the planispheric disc and that only he knows where it is. After splitting up to look for clues, Fred goes to the basement. There he finds a mirror, but he notices that his reflection is not normal. It moves differently. When Fred turns around, his reflection pulls him into the mirror, causing Fred to drop his lantern before he disappears. Fred finds himself in a destroyed and apocalyptic version of Crystal Cove with skeletons everywhere. Just when he starts to think that everyone else is dead, including the other members of the gang, Fred meets an old version of Daphne. Old Daphne tells him that the cause of Crystal Cove's destruction is the planispheric disc that sped up time in the town, making everyone age faster and therefore die faster, and that she is the only survivor of the catastrophe. Old Daphne tells Fred that he needs to find the planispheric disc in order to reverse the process and save the town. The other members of the gang realize that the house wasn't haunted. It was a cat that made all the noises that worried the neighbors. Shaggy, Daphne, Velma, and Scooby are waiting for Fred outside the house when Evil Fred shows up. Evil Fred makes them think that he is the real Fred. Riding the mystery machine, he takes the gang to an electronics store, where he takes a radio and headphones. He tells Shaggy to drive while he sits in the driver's seat, making Daphne to ride in the back seats along with Velma and Scooby. The gang starts to suspect about Evil Fred. Meanwhile, Fred takes old Daphne to the destroyed FF Furatorium Food Emporium to search for the disc there. Evil Fred makes the gang to search for the disc in the real food emporium. Then, Fred tells old Daphne that it wasn't there where he hid it, and takes her to the Arcana-Rama Movieplex. Evil Fred then takes the gang to the real movieplex. After traveling to a couple of more places, the gang realizes that they are with a fake Fred, and that the real Fred must be somewhere else. Fred and old Daphne are attacked by skeletons, and they get inside the mystery machine and flee. But then, Fred takes old Daphne to the real Steel Co. Industries, telling her that he knows the truth about her. Fred meets Evil Fred and the gang in there. After a fight between the Freds, the real Fred takes the planispheric disc. Daphne is able to distinguish the two by asking the two Freds how they feel about her. Evil Fred was actually Fred's dad, Brad Chills, and old Daphne was Fred's mom, Judy Reeves. She had been communicating with her husband via radio, telling him where Fred thought he had hidden the planispheric disc. Fred chides his father for trying to impersonate his son, whom he doesn't know anything about. Fred and Judy had been traveling in the abandoned Crystal Cove's movie studio all along, which had been converted in order to be an exact but dilapidated replica of the actual town. Brad and Judy tell the gang that they went through plastic surgery in order to fake their identities. The skeletons were in reality robots, Mr. Bones' Skilobots. Unfortunately, Professor Pericles shows up and threatens to kill Daphne with his robots if Fred doesn't give the disc to him. After giving the disc to Pericles, he releases Daphne and escapes. Pericles then takes the planispheric disc to a secret chamber in Destroidocorp and places it in a special location, causing the room to change, saying, "I'm coming for you, Master. I'm coming to set you free." Scooby is having nightmares with the Dancing Man and Nova. When suddenly his dreams get worse, he runs into the once-defeated Freak of Crystal Cove, now scarier than ever. The next morning, Scooby wakes up and panics to the gang about his dream. The gang shows Scooby a book about supernatural curses, with a picture of the author on the back, Professor Horatio Caron, university hypnotherapist who studied the supernatural. Scooby recognizes him as the Dancing Man in his dreams. Later on, they drove down to see Professor Caron to see if he could shed some light on Scooby's nightmares. Velma thinks the idea is crazy. She never believed in real monsters. When the gang arrived at Professor Caron's mansion, he first yelled at them to leave. But when Scooby told him that he was in his nightmares, he let them come in. When they met, the gang saw that the professor had pictures of the monstrous freak on his walls, seeing them in his nightmares. The professor kept yelling at them, but then calmed down. He lost the best part of him, which is the man Scooby sees in his dreams, dancing. Then, he told the gang about the sitting room, a waiting room between time, space, and different dimensions. He said that they would find the answers to whatever it is they need to find there. The professor had the gang lie down on the floor in a circle. He gave Velma a talisman to give to his other self when time was up. He gave them 1 hour to confront the monstrous freak, and after that, there was no coming back. He pressed a button on his desk, and a big hypno wheel lowered from the ceiling over the gang, spinning. Slowly, the gang were hypnotized into a deep sleep. Then, Professor Caron started counting the hour. The next minute, the gang found themselves in the sitting room, surrounded by the best parts of other people, trapped there by the cursed treasure, including the original Mystery Incorporated, Ed Machine, and ex-Mayor Jones. Fred thought that Mayor Dad has something to do with the monstrous freak, being the one they unmasked. Suddenly, the monstrous freak appears, and the gang scatters in different directions. Fred then finds himself in the Old West. Before him stand the Mystery Gang, 4 mystery-solving cowgirls, and their bull Tiny, who are using one of the keys, the Conquistador's helmet. Shaggy and Scooby find their way to Spanish Crystal Cove, where they find Alianza Misterio, the mystery-solving banditos, and their skunk, El Fucci, using the mortar bowl. Velma finds the Mystery Fellowship, the Darrow family, using the flintlock. Daphne appears back at the Burlington Library, where the Benevolent Lodge of Mystery has the sailcloth, the 4th key. Later, the freak catches up with all of them. The gang get chased to an area where a temple stood. The freak gets weakened by the light atop the temple and runs off with the talisman. The gang meets Anunnaki Nova, and Velma has a nervous breakdown over things not making sense to her, which Daphne calms her down about. Anunnaki Nova tells the gang about the very first group of mystery solvers, immortalized at the top of the temple, the Hunters of Secrets. They attempted to destroy the crystal sarcophagus and the evil entity inside with the heart of the jaguar. Meanwhile, time is running out, and Fred, along with Daphne, has gone to see his fake dad, who forgives him for what he did, because he wasn't really that bad, and ex-Mayor Jones says that Fred is the best part of him and will be proud of him no matter what happens. The rest of the gang appear, and Velma gives the crystal to the dancing man, sending the gang and him back to the real world. As this happens, Anunnaki Nova instructs Scooby to find the heart of the jaguar to destroy the evil beneath Crystal Cove. In the conscious world, the dancing man rejoins with Karen, making him whole again, as the gang wake up. Karen is overjoyed and thanks the gang. The gang, however, are in shock from the revelations they have found out, making them doubt what they should do. But Scooby reminds them of their quest ahead. The gang arrives at an airport in Crystal Cove, alongside Mayor Nettles and Velma's mom. After dropping off Velma's mom at the Spook Museum, it becomes clear that Crystal Cove has become deserted, and everyone in town has been eaten by the ground. Later that day, after witnessing Mayor Nettles and Sheriff Stone vanish, the gang goes to Fred's house to discuss the planispheric disk, Nibiru, the cursed treasure, and an upcoming planetary alignment. The ground then starts to shake and open, which fails to suck the gang into the hole. Soon, an armored mole-like truck emerges from the hole and Krieg's staffabots emerge, shooting at the gang. Fred uses the traps in his house to cut the robots into pieces. The gang sets off beneath Crystal Cove and discovers everyone in town working for Professor Pericles and the rest of the original Mystery Incorporated. After hearing a conversation between the old Mystery Inc., the gang devise a tactical plan to bust everyone out and shut down the operation. Shaggy and Scooby go undercover as Kriegstaffabots, while Fred and the girls use a now heavily armored mystery machine to attack the robots. After the word is spread, the armored mystery machine invades the mines and attacks the robots. At the same time, Sheriff Stone leads a rebellion against the Kriegstaffabots and Pericles, destroying every Kriegstaffabot they encounter. Shaggy is recognized by Professor Pericles, who orders him shot. However, an angry Scooby defends his buddy and wildly shoots down all the Kriegstaffabots aiming at Shaggy. The battle tilts in favor of the citizens of Crystal Cove as hundreds of Kriegstaffabots are destroyed and the mines sabotaged. Soon, a number of the remaining Kriegstaffabots stop the mystery machine in its tracks, forcing Fred to blow it up. Shaggy and Scooby are distraught their friends have died in the van, but it turns out that the mystery machine was remotely controlled by Fred, Velma, and Daphne from a different car. Meanwhile, Pericles has found what he is looking for, the gateway to the evil entity and its treasure. He opens it with the planispheric disk, hoping that the watching gang will follow them, as Scooby-Doo needs to die. With the relics in Fred's bag, the gang does indeed follow the original Mystery Incorporated through the gateway. From his crystal sarcophagus, the evil entity urges his children to free him so he can burn Crystal Cove in a hellish prophecy. The gang follows the original Mystery Inc. through the caverns, trying to find a way to get ahead. They watch their predecessors reach the first gate. Velma notes alchemical symbols representing air, earth, water, and fire, each opened by its matching key. They realize the dream world scenarios showed how the keys work. The first gate is air, so they choose the sailcloth of the Benevolent Lodge of Mystery. Shaggy questions why the fourth key is first, but Daphne explains the gates were built in reverse. Professor Pericles calls out, knowing they would follow and bring the keys. He warns Nibiru is near and reveals Marcy is his hostage. The gang, unwilling to abandon her, agrees to proceed. Fred offers to go alone, but Daphne insists they stay together until the end. Before opening the air gate, Fred warns the gang to hold on, knowing it has a trap. Activating it creates a powerful air vortex, destroying some Kriegstaffabots. One surviving robot throws Daphne toward the gate, forcing Fred to plug the hole with the sailcloth, disarming the trap, and opening the gate to a strange realm of floating islands and wooden bridges. While Pericles is distracted, Marcy seizes him, urging the gang to go ahead and destroy the evil entity. They reluctantly leave her, but Judy Reeves trips Marcy with a whip, freeing Pericles and leaving her at the robot's mercy. Inside the air dimension, Scooby hears gunfire, but Velma says to keep moving. The gang reaches the second gate, opens it with the mortar bowl, and faces a rock monster, which Fred destroys. The third gate, behind a wall of water, is opened with the Conquistador helmet, sending them into the open ocean. As Pericles' group passes through the Earth dimension, the gang realizes that the next gate is below the water. Diving overboard and swimming to a glowing tunnel, they emerge from a pool next to the final gate. Shaggy offers to do the honors of opening the gate with the flintlock, but his attempt only sends a bullet ricocheting around the room. Daphne realizes that the true key is the flint itself, and opens the gate by slotting it into an opening on the lock. Bracing themselves, the gang enters a lava-filled cavern, where they finally discover the cursed treasure. Realizing that they are beneath Crystal Cove, they come upon the evil entity's crystal prison. The entity tries to convince the gang to release it, but Velma asserts that they are here to destroy it. In response, the evil entity declares that they are destined to set it free, revealing that the gang are merely the latest in a long line of mystery-solving groups that it has manipulated into coming together, all for the purpose of releasing it from the sarcophagus. At that moment, the planets are aligned and Nibiru has begun. The gang is momentarily stunned by the entity's words, with Shaggy wondering if they would have even known each other if the evil Anunnaki had not manipulated their fates. However, Daphne quickly rejects the thought, declaring that her love for Fred and her bonds with the others are real. Even if the entity was responsible for bringing them together, the friendship between the members of the gang is entirely their own. Realizing that Daphne is right, the gang regains its resolve and Scooby prepares to destroy the sarcophagus with the heart of the jaguar, only for the spear to be snatched out of his paws by Professor Pericles, whose group has finally caught up with the gang. With the remaining Kriegsstaffabots holding his foes at bay, the evil parrot opens the sarcophagus, releasing the evil entity at last. Grabbing Scooby-Doo, the entity declares that he must be devoured and reborn as a vessel to its darkness. Scooby breaks free, but Pericles convinces him to forget possessing Scooby and volunteers to be possessed by the being instead, believing that he will gain unlimited power. Agreeing to this deal, the entity seizes Pericles and pours its essence into his body, causing him to grow into a dark green giant. Gloating about his newfound power, Pericles prepares to destroy the gang, but the evil entity proceeds to subdue his consciousness and mutate the parrot's body into a massive squid-like monster with horns. Brad Chiles and Judy Reeves offer themselves as servants to the entity, but the monster instead consumes them to increase its own strength. It then assumes control of the Kriegsstaffabots, sending them to capture the gang and Mr. E. The remaining humans flee, but Scooby-Doo stays behind, intent on destroying the evil entity with the heart of the jaguar. Unfortunately, the spearhead shatters upon contact with the entity's head, forcing Scooby to flee before the entity consumes him. Meanwhile, the gang manages to destroy 5 of the Kriegsstaffabots. Shaggy knocks 2 of them into a lava pit, while Fred and Velma disable 3 more with a barrage of gems fired from an old cannon. But Mr. E tells Velma that it's too late for him before being devoured. The entity turns its attention towards the gang once again, but its tentacles are blocked by a shield of blue energy that appears around them. The evil Anunnaki decides to instead turn its attention towards Crystal Cove, causing lava to erupt beneath the city. As people panic and the city's main sign burns, mirroring Scooby-Doo's vision in an earlier episode, is a huge galactic implosion followed by a bright light, and the gang happily sees themselves unharmed, the town around them seemingly untouched, and cheer their success. So that will be it from us. If you enjoyed the video, let us know which character was your favorite. Also, do not forget to leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for similar content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at the next one.